Lansie Sylvia is up next. She's the Director of Engagement for Here's My Chance, a creative agency that works exclusively with nonprofits and socially responsible businesses. She serves as Project Director for Next Stop Democracy, and she founded Philly Give and Get, a volunteer-run organization that promotes nonprofit partners and raises funds to support them in the greater Philadelphia area. Please welcome Lansie Sylvia.
Hey, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to my story. Thank you to Achieve and MCON for having me here. 2 years ago, I was where you are. I was in the audience, and now I'm on stage. So dream big. Dream big, guys. And thank you also to my fantastic partner, Andrew, and my wonderful parents and my grandparents, all of whom are watching on the live stream right now. So say hi. Hi, Mom. So I'm here to talk to you about a project that we did called Next Stop Democracy. And it was funded by the Knight Foundation. It was produced by Here's My Chance, which is the company I work for. And my path to the polling place was not linear. I started as an art teacher doing arts education during an AmeriCorps City Year. No, not City Year, just an AmeriCorps Year of Service. I didn't get one of the cool jackets. And I found out that I was like okay at getting 7th and 8th graders to make family portraits in the style of Keith Haring. But I was really good at asking people to give me stuff for free. And I found out when you work at a nonprofit, that's called fundraising. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania and I got my master's in nonprofit leadership. Right after I graduated, I started being a development director. I was at a consulting firm. And then I ended up at Here's My Chance doing engagement work, really communication work, thinking about what gets people to do things and how do we change that behavior, hopefully for good causes. And all of this led me to be in my elevator in my apartment in Philadelphia at 5:30 in the morning after having just stayed up all night with the aforementioned wonderful, handsome partner, Andrew, making 50 lariats to lock these signs outside of polling places on November 3rd, 2015. And it was very tiring. But what I needed was all of the skills that I had gotten. I used to be worried about hopping from job to job. Like, people tell you that's not a great idea. But what I learned is that you go into every job and you learn what you need to then do your next job better. And so having involvement with the arts, being a really good fundraiser, thinking about engagement, I would need all of those things to tackle my next big adventure, which is trying to get people to care about voting. So I'm here to convince you that the future of civic engagement is physical. It's not digital. That we need to make things in the real world in order to make change in the real world. And by building things together, we can actually build communities. And the way that we made our change was to make signs. So this is what voter turnout in Philadelphia looks like right now. If 2015 was included over there, it'd be like a little bit closer to 25, but on the whole, pretty pathetic, right? And this is something that is happening across the country. Voter turnout is decreasing in really alarming rapid rates. And the reason that this is important is that voter participation in local elections, municipal elections, are one of the best indicators that we have as to how civically healthy our city is. And increasingly, voters are sitting out these elections. These elections are the opportunity they have to impact what goes on inside City Hall, and yet they're sitting out. And one of the worst groups at this are millennials. But our project wasn't just about millennials. It was about getting everybody in Philadelphia to feel good about voting. It also wasn't about voter turnout necessarily, because that's a pretty complex issue. There's a lot that goes into voter turnout. Everything from your trust in federal government to like whether it rains. Like, when it rains, turnout's a lot worse. And so we were thinking more about the actual experience. How does it feel to vote? Do you like it? Is it exciting? Do you feel like you're part of a community? And most of the time you don't, because this is what a polling place looks like in Philadelphia. Right? It's bureaucratic, it's dreary. Those pieces of paper outside, really unflattering photo, but it's the only one I had. Those polling places outside, the papers outside the polling place, right? That big pink one is a sample ballot. You also have papers about voter rights, accessibility, translation, and things like that. But it doesn't say like, this is a polling place. right? And when I asked the city commissioners about that, they said, well, all of these pieces of paper plus the signage from the candidates and the volunteer election, polling place people, that should really be enough to indicate where the polling place is. But that bothered me because it conflates politics with civics, right? Why should the candidates' posters be the thing that tells me where I get to exercise my civil rights? And honestly, if you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't know that it was here. How do you know what a sample ballot looks like if you've never voted before? And so I said, why don't we just make some signs? And why don't we make them big and badass and created by local artists and street artists, and we'll do wheat pastes and we'll do all sorts of amazing things, and we'll start to change what the outside of this polling place looks like, because we have very little power about what happens inside, right? I can't change the candidates on the ballot, especially not in 7 months. I had 7 months to do this project. I can't change the candidates on the ballot. I cannot, unfortunately, make Election Day a weekend. I can't change the actual physical ballot. And part of this is because it's really hard to change things around elections. There's a lot of rules around it. But as of 10 feet outside that door, I can do anything. We can do anything. We could have pogo sticks. We could have, people like spinning around and doing aerial tricks, and we could have these really big signs, and we could make sure that anybody coming there feels welcomed and feels accepted and feels like they should be there. Because signs do a bunch of really amazing things that I don't even think we consciously think about, right? A sign says, somebody came here before you, and somebody will come here after. A sign says, I expected you. I thought you were coming. And when you got here, I wanted to make sure that you weren't lost. And isn't that how we want voters to feel? Like we expected them to be there. Because part of the thing is that we talk about how terrible voters, it's like all of the narrative is so dour, right? All of the journalists in Philly, they talk about how bad voter turnout's gonna be, then they document how bad it is, and then they crow about the fact they were right, right? That's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. What if we change the narrative to say, not only did we expect you, but we welcome you. You have a place here. So why street art? Does anybody know who Frank Rizzo is? What? Yes, thank you. Frank Rizzo was mayor of Philadelphia in the 70s. He was also an incredibly violent, racist, homophobic, misogynist who championed police brutality and mass incarceration. And this is Jessie Hemmons, who goes by Ishnitz, and she put a bikini on Frank Rizzo to say, why? Why is this happening, right? This statue is across from City Hall. It became something so ingrained in our city psyche that we walked by it every day without even asking whether or not it should be there. And street artists have this amazing power to put something beautiful on something abandoned. And we had seen the process of elections as being abandoned by Philadelphia's voters. So we brought on Conrad Benner, who is one of the most famous street art photographers, and he started to round up this really amazing curated list of artists. And then we also had an open call. And then we also gave 10 of those signs to the Mural Arts Restorative Justice Project. And we started to see this really cool thing happening, that as we were building things with our hands in the real world, we were also building a coalition around this project. And then we also started to see that it kind of grew onto its own thing. These are 2 artists. This is Sonia Petrus, Austin Seraphin. All of the artists started to use their signs to talk about things that they wanted to talk about in regards to voting. These 2 do Braille street art. They asked the provocative question, does street art need to be visual? And they used their sign to talk about accessibility. Of the over 1,500 polling places in Philadelphia, as of 2015, only 44 of them were fully accessible. And they used their art to ask why, right? We went into Graterford Prison, and we did workshops with these prisoners about their rights, right? Because that varies state by state. In Vermont, where I'm from, you never lose your right to vote. You can vote while you're incarcerated. In Pennsylvania, you gain that right after you've served your sentence. And in places like Alabama, depending on what your crime is, you never get that right back again. And so we built the conversation around the building of these signs, right? These physical objects, they gave us the occasion by which to come together with the gentleman that we worked with in Graterford. It gave us a reason to talk to each other. It gave us a reason to help educate and to think about the idea, again, inside, outside. We are having these conversations with guys who have life sentences. They'll never vote again. But what they think, what they believe, all of their life is impacted by everybody who does vote. And so they created something on the inside that we were then able to physically take to the outside and place it back in their communities of origin to talk about how important it is for those communities to vote. These are some of the signs, and they're absolutely incredible. And so this is what we would like a polling place to look like, right? It's still got all the stuff that you need to have on there, but it also has something that's joyous. It has something that's celebratory. It has something that's beautiful. Because isn't that what we think democracy should be? That it should be joyous and beautiful and something that anybody can participate in. This is what I want a polling place to look like. Because remember what I said about the commissioners saying, don't worry about signage. There'll be enough, signs by the different candidates. That's true. And in a lot of places, this is what our signs looked like. They were the one nonpartisan bastion in the middle of all of these, sort of garish red and blues. Fun fact, we actually weren't allowed to use red and blue because we didn't want to appear partisan. So that kind of threw a wrinkle for a lot of fun. Yellow, that's pretty good. Our logo's purple, not by accident. So this is what a lot of them looked like. But the thing that was important to me is that this was the only sign that was telling you where to go without telling you what to think. This is the only thing that welcomes you to a polling place that doesn't have an agenda. And in a lot of places, it looked like this. We were the only ones out there. Because something I didn't realize, I can be kind of hopelessly optimistic. Something I didn't realize when I started this project is that there would be people that didn't want me to do it. That there's no idea so good that it doesn't have detractors. Because people in positions of power do not give that power up easily. And guess what? The electorate is starting to look really old, really white, and really affluent. And so imagine how great I felt when we got the results back from our team, our data team. It was a team of PhD students. And they said that of the people that noticed the signs, 1 in 10 said that the signs significantly impacted their decision whether to vote that day. And the signs were overwhelmingly noticed by individuals who are Hispanic, African American, and attained lower levels of formal education. And aren't those the people that we need to welcome in? I was actually told by a high school where I wanted to place one of these, I got on the phone with their administrator, that encouraging people to vote was too political for them. I was also told by a representative, an elected official in West Philly, that there was no reason for bilingual signage at her polling place. Politics aren't civics. They're not the same thing. Politics has an agenda. Civics is your way of being a citizen in the world. And then this happened. Haddonfield School. 2 teachers saw our project and they were so inspired by it that they decided to make signs with their students. And their 7th and 8th graders had a civics curriculum where they learned about voter disenfranchisement, the Voter Rights Act, suffrage. And then they explored those topics in signs that they created and put into their neighborhood and put into their physical world. They had a direct impact on how it feels to vote in Haddonfield. I want to leave you with this. It's a quote from one of the artists, and to be fair, one of my friends. A city of people giving their best is a city worth living in, right? And I encourage you, as I leave you today, that the next time you think about approaching one of the big problems that we need to solve, ground it in the physical world. Create something together that can then be used as a tool that can be spread digitally. Because you can use objects to change narratives. You can use things to make intangible concepts tangible. So please, go out, get some friends, and make something in public. Thank you.
Lansie, have a seat. So I look forward to asking you this first question because it is heavily trending and there's swear words in it. So,
Ha-ha!
yay!
Did I swear?
No.
Oh.
No, I look forward to swearing.
I was like, I try to keep my social media clean.
Oh, and you do. 2016 is a shit show, and a lot of millennials are talking about not voting for either or at all. Plans for getting people to change their minds and actually vote.
So, So again, we specifically were funded by the Knight Foundation to think about municipal elections, to think about local elections. Because by and large, the national election doesn't need our help, right? People know when the national election is, they know who's running for office, but like the 2017 local election for district attorney, that needs a little bit of promo. So again, I'm really passionate about the idea that you're gonna be a statistic either side. If you don't vote, then you show that 20-year-old African-American men who live in this neighborhood don't vote. If you do vote, you show that they do. And that creates it creates the mandate for the type of elected officials that we see running, right? You're gonna become a statistic either way. And when you don't vote, it's no big political act. Like, it is like not brave to not vote, right? Like, people will just fill that vacuum with whatever narrative they want to place on you. They'll say that millennials are lazy. They'll say that you're not invested, that you don't care about local issues. And we know that you do. My thing, and I love this, I don't know, I fact-checked this for me, MCON. I don't know if this is on every ballot, but in Philadelphia, there's a button on like the lower right-hand corner that says, I do not endorse any of these candidates. And you can push that button. You can show up and tell them that you don't like the candidates. But if you just stay home, they win, right?
Absolutely. Do you do anything other than the physical signs to promote voting? Is there any kind of social media?
Yeah, so Conrad Benner, who did our artist curation, who's also just this amazing Instagrammer, we had him running all of the social, and it was really important for us to not create content for content's sake. What we wanted to do was, again, that inside-outside duality that we're always thinking about. We wanted to invite people into the conversation, into our process, into our failures, and into, honestly, the artist studios, right? We had 60 amazing artists that all have a totally different process. So Instagram was really big for us. My goal was just to flood people's feeds with positive imagery around voting. We got a ton of press coverage. Again, we did really flood those feeds. And all of the artists that participated, a lot of them have really strong Instagram followings as well. So they were always posting work in progress, finalized signs, that sort of thing. Facebook, we used a little bit. Twitter, we used a little bit. But really, Instagram and email were our biggest sort of digital tools that we used to leverage the physical objects.
You talked briefly about, you can't use red and white. Yeah. So you went with a purple logo.
Yeah. It's
a very strict rule and establishment of where you can put things, what you can make. How do you stay creative with those very strict parameters?
I think that I don't necessarily know, but I know that it happened, right? So we had, everybody got the same canvas, everybody got the same A-frame. We couldn't use red or blue. We also, we wanted them to be the closest approximation to ADA compliant. Weirdly enough, there's not ADA compliancy around external signage, which I was fascinated to discover. So ours are actually bigger. The sign is actually bigger. It can be seen at a distance of 40, 50 feet, all the way down a couple different blocks by people who have vision impairments. So given that, right, given those restrictions, if you go onto nextstopdemocracy /blog, .com/blog, you'll see like this incredible diversity of art. So using those, again, having those restrictions in place to make sure they were legible and they were useful is very important, that these signs be a utility for these communities. Still brought out, like, this is by Amberella on Instagram, and it's like the coolest. I just want this to be greeting me when I come home every day.
I mean, other than flashing lights and, it's an arresting image for sure, but there's so much noise at a polling station, just, that 50 feet out. So if you don't have branding and a consistent brand look, how do you break through that noise?
I mean, again, I would respectfully push back that some of those polling places have noise. A lot of them don't. Again,
like that one, it's just like a chain link fence, and then you're fine.
A lot of them didn't. We heard that over and over again, that it's really easy to find your polling place because there's all this noise, there's all these canvassers, but there weren't in a lot of places. So I think that another really important thing to us is that these be beautiful, and however you want to define that, they be creative. And I think because we valued the artists, we made sure to pay every artist. We didn't pay them as much as I would have liked because budgets, but we paid every single artist because we need to stop asking creative people to do creative things for free. And so, right? And that, I mean, so many of our artists talked about how much that meant. I wasn't even looking for it to be some sort of indicator. It was just the right thing to do. And all of our artists swung for the fences. Like $250 for somebody like Amber or somebody like Gaia or, you know, Dom Episcopo is not what they get paid in the real world. But they all just turned it out. And so I think the way that you cut through noise is quality. It's quality and creativity. If something's really creative and it's really high quality, it'll cut through.
I think you have a possible future artist here with this next question.
Yes.
What are the 2 things to do to make my polling place more welcoming, and who do I call?
We had a really good relationship with our commissioners, so I would encourage you to talk to your commissioners. Our commissioners were our commissioners at the election office were so excited that we were doing this, because it's really hard for them to innovate, because unlike like a litter campaign or like a PSA for, you know, I don't know, like some type of civic benefit or whatever, about elections, if you do, you have to do it for the entire city, right? Because it can't be partisan. It can't like look like it's leaning, so that's extremely expensive. So they don't get to innovate as much as I think they would like to. So I would talk to your commissioner. I would say, you know, what are the big, hairy, audacious goals? Like, what have you always wanted to do? What do you, they should get feedback from polling places. One thing I would like to look at is like, where are the polling places that are the most hostile? Where are the polling places that people are feeling the least welcomed and the most intimidated? And how can we but let's start with those places and let's make them feel acceptable and welcoming and warm to anybody who wants to use them. I would start there. I don't know if that's 1 thing or 2 things, but call your commissioner and then call me. I'm happy to help.
Now, you tweeted me on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, so make the ask.
What was that?
You wanted to be at the museum, right?
I did. Yeah. Can we put our signs in the museum?
So we're not a polling place. So what can we do to support freedom of expression and polling and petition, which is, you know, one of the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment?
Yeah, I think let's put like 10 of the signs in there, and we'll put like 10 of the signs in there, and we'll have like a little like gallery exhibition. We'll have a little 1 sheet about like how we did it, what we did, and then people can download the specs off of our website, and they can go and they can make their own in their own cities. Right? Would you guys go? And I think, again, like my final thing is I don't think it has to be a sign like this. I think it could be sidewalk art. I think it could be chalkboards. I think it could be posters, right? I think it could be infinitely remixable the way that art is. So if this isn't the thing that feels like it's right to your community, go out there and try things that do feel right for you. Just do it. Just do it. Get out there and do it. Action is, what is it? Action is the best antidote for guilt. So go for it.
Thank you so much, Lansie, Sylvia.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much.